Hello and welcome. I'm really pleased to have Karen Gibb here, who is the founder of Mind Marvels. My name's Katie Stickley. I'm the co-founder of Did Teach. We help teachers find alternative careers after they've dedicated time to the classroom. And one of the groups people that we work with are franchisors. And the reasons that we work with them is because we really love what they're doing within their community. We love how they work with children, exactly like teachers do, just with a different spin on it. And Karen, you were a former teacher, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, in secondary school. So
Yeah.
we work with primary schools now, but I was a high school teacher back in the day. But yeah, very quickly realised the profession wasn't for me, but I loved working with the children. So it was finding something a bit different that meant I could still work with the children.
Oh, lovely. And what was your specialism then in secondary?
So in Scotland, we have a subject called Modern Studies, which is
Mhm.
basically modern politics. So it wasn't the most entertaining subject, but I really enjoyed it. It was learning about the government and parliament and policies. And the children really liked it because it wasn't history set, way in the past or geography. It was kind of a mixture in between. So yeah, I enjoyed it for a period of time, but very quickly realised it wasn't quite for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually trained to teach in Scotland, in Edinburgh, so I know the Highers. I know that system well. And then I moved down to England and started my career right down south, so probably quite far away from Edinburgh. But yeah, I absolutely loved my time in Scotland. I really loved the
Oh,
schools that I worked in, and they had a really nice policy where we learned primary teaching as well as secondary, so you could
ah,
basically pick what you wanted, and my preference was secondary. But yeah, it was
mhm.
a fantastic experience, a great country, and nice to get a different side of education as well, not just
Absolutely.
GCSEs. Mm.
Yeah, it's very different to England, the Scottish system. Of course, there's the emphasis on exams, but we don't quite have things like Ofsted or things that really stress teachers out about down south, like performance-related pay. We don't have anything like that up here.
Yeah.
So it is a different stress, but still, the stresses are there for a teacher regardless.
Oh,
Um,
they are, aren't they?
Absolutely. So what I actually did once I'd graduated and did a bit of my modern studies teaching was I worked with kids in care instead. So I worked really niche teaching environments with a couple of kids at a time, and I wore jeans and I was called Karen. It was very formal, but that was the type of teaching that I really liked, and I grew to love as part of my teaching career.
Wow, that's amazing. And how did that then fuel into what you're doing with Mind Marvels? Because I can see lots of connections there.
Yeah, absolutely. And now it seems really obvious, but at the time I had no idea. So I was really interested. I was kind of like a primary teacher in that I taught all the subjects to the children, but they were teenagers. And I could see that there was a mismatch with emotions versus, trying to get maths and English done. The children were just not regulated emotionally. And that's kind of what inspired Mind Marvels, because I very quickly realised we have to get children emotionally ready so that they can raise attainment. Now, of course, raising attainment isn't the number one priority for having good emotional well-being. But when you're talking to head teachers in schools, that is what they're looking for: how to raise attainment, how to get good grades in schools. And sadly or not, the best way to do that is to get our brains ready to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And you work quite closely with schools as well, don't you? It's not just a franchise that you just do in a church hall. You actually actively go in, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the majority of our work is in primary schools,
Mhm.
nurseries, and we do a little bit of community work. So that's with parents and children learning together about their emotions. But I would say the majority is in the daytime in schools with particular groups of children or classes of children, just teaching them ways to feel that calmness with Mind Marvels.
So this is a really nice balance, isn't it? If you're a former teacher and you're thinking about setting up a business, then something like Mind Marvels is great because you can still work in schools, you can still empower children, you can still have the conversations with parents and teachers, doing all of that, but running your own business. So why do you think teachers should take on a franchise rather than just sort of striking up on their own? What advice would you give around that?
Mm-hmm. It's funny, I was fiercely independent to start my own business, but that's because I didn't know what a franchise was. When I started this in 2018 into 2019, I'd never heard of a franchise, or I thought it was some weird pyramid scheme that was like
Yeah.
dodgy. So if somebody had already created Mind Marvels and said, here you go, this is what you buy into, I think it would have definitely changed my outlook on running a business. But the reason that franchising is so great when it's done right and when it's done ethically is that you basically do have that typical business in a box that you're ready to start with. You've got the session plans, the logo, the marketing, the branding, the uniform, the resources. Everything is there that you need to start a business. Whilst when you start from scratch with nothing, you'll spend days creating a logo, you'll ponder about what to do, and not really know the direction that you're going in. But if you're somebody that wants to just hit the ground running and have a business that's ready to go, now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Not. But what I mean is a lot of the decisions are made, are sort of almost taken away from you. And that can be a really good thing because it means you just focus on the business rather than worrying about font colours and everything else that we think is really important. But in hindsight, not really.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point you make because time is your sort of best commodity, isn't it, really? And you can, from setting up a business myself, I know the transformation we've gone through, how many pivots we've had to do, how much money we've spent on particular products that haven't worked and have worked. And there's a lot of mistakes, I guess, that I made when I was starting up my business. And so, like you say, hitting the ground running is really powerful. You're a good teacher, you're great in the classroom, that you want to empower young people. Taking on something like a franchise that already ticks all of those boxes and has got proven kind of business acumen and reputation as well is really important, isn't it? And it's nice that you're actively hiring teachers. Why are you looking for teachers to start a franchise in particular?
So we're a little different to other franchises. A lot of franchises are part-time or they want people that just want to work a couple of days a week. So what we look for, whilst we're looking for teachers, it's probably more teachers that are ready to really make that investment in terms of motivation and eventually be able to build teams. So it would help if they had managerial experience within the teaching career, or perhaps they've run a business in a previous life as well. Mm-hmm. So we really relish the opportunity to be able to work with teachers that are that self-motivated, because I always say to people, running a business is hard. And if anyone tells you it's easy, then that's not the right franchise. Or if it is the right franchise, let me know so I can join it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant.
But you need a lot of be self-determined and have that grit and resilience. So if you're coming from teaching where you've maybe had really bad experiences or you feel really low, then perhaps running a business isn't maybe what you need to do. Maybe you need to go and seek employment first elsewhere and then build that confidence up. But likewise, there's also part-time opportunities with different franchises as well. So there's a whole variety of franchises out there that can suit the right people for the right types of business.
Absolutely.
But it's really exciting because there is so many motivated teachers out there, and sometimes wanting to leave the classroom is the best motivator to get started in a business, especially a franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. I coach a lot of teachers and we talk about these going towards goals. And, it's not about leaving the classroom. It's not about like, that's it, that door's shut. It's about what next for you. You've done the teaching, you've been in the classroom, but what next for you is very, very very powerful. And if you are, very motivated by sort of helping young people, making them more resilient, lots of teachers find that very empowering, don't they? Then Mind Marvels could be a really good fit for you. Tell me a bit about Mind Marvels values then. What do you guys kind of stand for? What's your USP, do you think?
Excellent. We've got 3 really simple values. So it's always be kind, make a difference every day, and educate with empathy, because we don't always know the classrooms we're going into or the pupils that we'll be working with. And I think it's really important to have that openness, that mindfulness, that connection with the children. And let's be honest, children can be challenging. I would never want to paint the picture that you go in and everyone's sitting there, all children relaxed. Sometimes you go into a classroom. I mean, I'm sure you'll remember, like, if particular days, I remember once I went into a class and it was a really sunny afternoon. An ice cream van had just been outside, so all the kids had ice cream and sweets. And I'm coming in and they're all just like up to here, like high energy. And I'm like, wow, okay, we're going to bring this down. But it can be challenging. So I'd say that those 3 values are what really keep people mindful of how, when things go wrong or things don't go to plan or when sessions are hard, or equally when you get an amazing session, those 3 values bring us back to why we do what we do, and to know that sometimes life can be a little bit of a challenge, but we can make the most of it and know that we really are impacting those children's lives so significantly, even if it feels at the time like maybe not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's key to it, isn't it? And that's, as teachers, that is what we strive to do, isn't it? Yes, we're there to educate them, but we're also there to make them these sort of well-rounded human beings. And kindness can be very overlooked. I know it's a big buzzword at the moment, but it can be very overlooked for ambition and gain and sometimes laziness as well. So it's nice that that's part of your kind of core aims. So tell me about how, if I was to start a Mind Marvels franchise, how do I start getting into schools? What does that look like?
Excellent. So again, this may take time. It's not like you're going to email a school and they'll get back to you. If they do, it's amazing. But this is really where that perseverance and that resilience comes in, because you could send out a bunch of emails and not hear anything and think, well, that's it. But that's not what it's all about. It's about showcasing with free taster sessions into schools, but also really impacting and knowing that teachers are busy. So when emails come in, they literally just go like this in the inbox. It's like you have to catch the teachers at the right time. So we offer free tasters, first of all, and that showcases what we do so that it really does embed and people can see the value in our sessions. But I'd say the most important part is we teach modules on how to sell to schools so that teachers become aware of the different ways. So that you can go through the local council, governors, multi-trust academies. There's a whole variety of ways and funding, and we really delve into that with franchisees so they feel empowered to know those options as they approach schools.
That's great. Yeah, because a lot of teachers who perhaps will take on one of your franchisees, they will have their own little network, won't they? But they might not feel that they can ask their partner's school or a sort of friend for that sort of connection. So it's nice that they can go down a kind of slightly different route to get to those schools. So not blurring the lines between professionalism and friendship.
And sometimes it's weird. When I left teaching, I had teacher friends, but they never really helped me with getting into schools. And sometimes you find that there can be almost, people feel a little envious that you've made that jump out of teaching and they're still there. So I never really like to rely on contacts. Contacts are great, but so is networking. So if you can go to local networking and things where head teachers will be, that can be just as powerful as actually having contacts in the schools.
Sounds like a very good strategy.
Mhm.
What sort of mistakes have you made setting up your business? I know we sort of touched on this earlier, but what do you think the main things that you think, oh gosh, I really did that badly, or I
Oh.
learned something from that?
So many. I've not had any business experience before. I left teaching in 2019. I left an official teaching role and decided to do supply teaching on the side. And I remember when I handed my notice in, my head teacher said, "Oh, but I've not had any reference requests for you for a new job." And I said, "That's because I don't have a job. I'm just going out on my own." But I was very lucky to have supply teaching in the back burner as well to supplement me at the time. But I'd say just the biggest mistakes are holding myself back, not always believing in myself or having self-doubt, or, like I was saying earlier, spending so much time on marketing and business cards and getting things right, getting all the spacing right, things that people don't actually care about.
Yeah.
um, Things, I've made massive changes, especially since having franchisees on, and that's what's really important to me, is when franchisees come on board, I want them to say things like, "Karen, what about this idea?" or "What if we did it this way instead?" Because they're the ones out there running the school sessions. And they're the ones that are bringing the ideas to me from that experience that they're going through. So I'm very open to ideas and sharing and implementing things when they work, or perhaps if they don't work, just explaining why, but not totally ruling it out as well. So I don't always have the answers, and I think that's a really important thing to remember as a franchisor. Like, I have a lot of knowledge and a lot of wealth and skills in this area, but I don't always get it right. And I think it's just about being honest and putting your hand up and saying, "Do you know, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to find out for you." And I think that's where honesty is a real great trait in business, just to be upfront with teachers and franchisees as well.
Do you know, it's so refreshing to hear that, because I think, that's part of it, isn't it? When you're part of a sort of teaching community, you're part of that wider community as well. And things that you're doing, or school, even assemblies, they have an impact, and they trickle, don't they? They trickle to the parents, and that might start a conversation with, the wider family and friends, and, and that's kind of quite important to teachers. So actually working for a franchisor who's going to listen to them and going to hear their voice, I think is just so lovely, that you're creating a bit more of a community with your franchisees, rather than, I'm the boss, this is the box, off you go, you're on your
Yeah,
own now.
and
That's really nice.
it's boring, Katie. It's boring if things stay the same. Franchisees become disillusioned. The franchisor usually becomes disillusioned. And you see it with some franchises that have been around 10, 20, 30 years. They don't change their logo. Everything looks quite stale and dry. And I never want to be like that. I always want us to be moving forwards and taking ideas on. And some of the stuff that franchisees have come up with has just been like incredible, and really, like, sometimes really simple, small things, but they've made such an impact on how we run sessions now, that I just think of us as a big team all helping each other and getting it right for the children. Like, that's the important part. If we get it right for the children, then we get it right for everyone else, including the schools and the teachers as well.
Yeah, perfect. And for people considering a My Marvels franchise, what locations are available? Are they, is it just Scotland, or is it all over the UK?
Yeah, all over the UK. We've got franchisees in the 3 countries now. We just need Northern Ireland next.
Nice.
But we've got the franchisees in Scotland, England, and Wales at the moment. But we're small, but we're an emerging franchise, which is really exciting. And I do feel that we are ahead of the game in terms of our innovation and our constant need to thrive for change as well. So absolutely. And the easiest way to get in touch is just mindmarvels.com. You can download a franchise pack there. We have so much information on the website, on social media. Everything is Mind Marvels, just for my own sanity of finding things. But we're really easy to find online. And of course, you can ask us any questions as well.
Yeah, and you're on Facebook too, aren't you? And you're
Yeah,
also at the International Franchise Show in London in April. You've got a stand there, is that right?
yeah, we are. We're on C4, so please
C4.
pop along. Yep, pop along and see us, and it'd be
Brilliant.
great to have that chat as well. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I think that's the key to it, isn't it? That if you're currently a teacher and you're thinking about taking on a franchise, you do need to have conversations. Like every conversation will just unlock something that perhaps you haven't thought about before, or you think about in a different way, and you can really understand the realities of the job as well. So you can talk to Karen and sort of say, what's a typical Monday like for a franchisee, and what does a session entail? What do I need to bring to it? Do I need a card? All these kind of practical things. The more you know, the more you can feel empowered to whether this is the right franchise for you.
Absolutely. And we're very particular about the type of franchisee that we bring on, and we have turned people away. Like, I want to be really transparent that franchising and running a business is not for everyone, but for those that really invest their time, their motivation into it, it can be just so worthwhile. But my biggest advice would be shop around. And I always say that to potential people, go and look at 5, 10 different franchises. If someone is pressurizing you to join, I would step away. I think it has to be a conversation where you're both right for each other. It's not about you choose a franchise. It should be about a conversation. Is this right for you? And are you right for us? Because you want to get this right. It's a long-term relationship, essentially. It is a big commitment. So I would just say, do your homework. If you can get to the exhibition, come and have a look at all the stands and just talk to franchisors and ask those awkward questions. I love it.
Yeah, it's important, isn't it? It's important that you understand the business as a whole, and that you actually relate. You said about relationships, and I think that's the key, isn't it? We know in the classroom that if we have a good relationship with a child that might be naughty or disruptive, something for other people, but we've worked hard to build that relationship, that things are going to go smoother. And that's the same with business, isn't it? That if you build those relationships, you build that sort of community of people that you trust and respect, as well as with the schools, the students, the parents, and you guys with your team as well, then it's all going to run a lot smoother.
Definitely. And I think, you could look at 2 different franchises and they'll have totally different values, totally different ways of doing things. And that's okay. That's the beauty of different franchises, but just make sure that relationship with the franchisor is there and it's solid, and that you meet the team, you speak to other franchisees as well, because that will help make your decision so much easier in the long run.
And if it really does tick your values, then it won't feel like work, will it? Do you feel like that?
Yeah, I am so fortunate. Like, I do really love what I do, and I'm so invested in it. Probably a little too much sometimes, but it's just because it excites me how much we can change children's lives. Like, it really is the tiniest little impacts that make that huge difference to a child's life. So it just excites me how much further the franchise can grow and expand, so that we have a team all around the UK helping children.
Wonderful. And just finally, love to know what are your sort of plans for the next year? Is there anything that you're working on and you've got sort of that you're going to invest in, or you're going to follow a particular route at the moment? What are you thinking?
Sure, yeah. So we've just brought on a mentor for the franchisees. So they meet every quarter to do goal setting and to find out, how their well-being is, how they're feeling emotionally, because like I say, it is hard work running your own business, and we want to just kind of have that check-in with franchisees. So we've got that every quarter now. We've just embedded, and we've got a few other courses and things coming up for franchisees, because I'm really big on training and keeping franchisees motivated as well. Like, I don't want things to just be the same all the time. So yeah, we've got a few things coming up, and in between that, I'm going to have my first child. So that I might be a little busy there.
Yeah, I think you might be. Absolutely.
But I'm
That's
really
wonderful.
fortunate. I've got a lovely head office team that support me, so they rally around the franchisees. So it's not like anyone ever feels alone. It's a true community, and that's what we strive to be as well.
That's fantastic. And I think, it would be nice to sort of touch on this as well. Like, what does happen if you're a franchisee and you're pregnant, or you
Yeah.
need some time off for health issues or anything? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it all depends on the franchise. I know that's a bit of a get out clause, but whatever your franchise agreement says, that's typically how it should follow. But I would always say as a franchisor that if you're leading with values of being kind and being empathetic, then sometimes things are not just in black and white. It has to be on a case by case basis. But
Mhm.
are options where franchisees can potentially take time off or have someone cover them temporarily.
Ah,
Or there are options, if things were a lot more serious, that they might have to sell early and exit their franchise. But these are great questions that potential franchisees should be asking franchisors as well, because if a franchisor can't answer that question, I'd also be concerned about how well they know their own business, because these are really important. It is a commitment of for us, it's 5-year contracts. So
mhm.
I think a lot can happen in 5 years, as we know. A lot can happen in a year.
Yep, absolutely. And in the next 6 months.
Exactly. So yeah,
Yeah,
a
wonderful.
lot going on.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fantastic. It's been lovely to actually speak to you in person. And thank you for giving up your time today and telling us a bit more about My Marvels and your journey from teaching into this like fantastic business, which really is, empowering young people, which is just amazing. That's what we want, isn't it?
Thank you so much, Katie. I really appreciate it, and thanks for having me on.
No problem. Pleasure. I will put all the details about where you can get in touch with Karen and My Marvels, because you might not be able to get in touch with Karen in a few months. And I'll put them all into the chat so you can see that. But thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.